Guys, welcome back. I've got Coach Will Trujillo on this call today, and I'm going to give kind of a little bit different format for today. I'm going to ask him a number of more questions. All of these questions are kind of going to be based around the idea of optimizing and improving as an athlete while not screwing up your body in terms of breaking it. And because, of course, Will is an expert in that place, so I'm going to hit a number of different questions. So, Will, let me just dive right in. My first question is, what are generally some of the biggest things that you see athletes coming into you like already broken? Like, what are the things that you find are generally broken or going to break your athletes up front?
Dynamic volume would be the number one thing. So, you know, easy low hanging fruit there is like dynamic gymnastics on on an unstable shoulder. So, getting someone who come in hasn't put in the volume of strict pull ups, absolute strict strength, and they jump right into high volume competition prep or competition style template, and it's just kind of going. Imagine dropping your car into the middle of a highway full of cars going 20 miles an hour and you're starting at zero. It just
So,
doesn't make sense.
so you're basically saying, I'm just going to use the pull-up as an example. You're
Yeah.
basically saying that somebody comes to you as an athlete without the prerequisite volume, and they start trying to do high rep kipping or butterfly pull-ups, and that just really jams into
Yeah.
the shoulder. Okay.
Yeah. And it's a hard thing because like we look at like, they're coming in, their goal is to compete at a high level. And it's like, okay, you have to be able to do a large number unbroken. You have to be able to do a large number within a training session, within a qualifying workout. And so you go, okay, well, let's do this. So I was like, well, no, you got to do some things first. Like, I agree, like those things are necessary to win, but we got to see where you're at and step up to that.
Gotcha. So I know this is a little bit dependent, particularly
Mhm.
male, female, and depending on kind of what level they are. But what would you say is the prerequisite volume on something like strict pull-ups? Is it time under tension or is it number of reps? Like, where would you say somebody is ready to do, let's call it 100 chest to bar butterfly pull-ups in a session?
I would probably start a step earlier than that because that 100, to be able to do 100 butterfly chest bars, we probably have three steps first. But I'd say before I started doing like a serious multiple times a week of like kipping or dynamic volume, like I would like to see at least a 25% strict weighted pull up. So that means like if you, because I'm bad at math, if you weigh 100 pounds, like I want to see you do a pull up with 25 pounds hanging from you. And I do want to see you be able to control 5 to 10 strict pull ups with like a great eccentric tempo. It's like something like a 3010, like true controlled tempo.
And just for people on the call, eccentric is just on a pull-up, that's the down phase.
Yeah.
And a 3010 would be 3 seconds down, no pause in the bottom, pull up in 1 second, and then hold for a
Yeah.
second to the top.
So have your buddy stand behind you and count Mississippi. So one Mississippi, two Mississippi, three up, one Mississippi. So it's like no shenanigans, no fooling me with bouncing on your tendons. Like you can actually control the motion. And I'm like, all right, it's not a perfect science, but that at least lets me know that we have a general base of strength, that you have some basic strength in your connective tissues. That I'm like, okay, we can start building this thing up.
Gotcha. Okay. So if that's kind of a baseline that you often see, people are trying to do too many dynamic contractions
Mm-hmm.
without the requisite volume. What then happens when they start to train? And I'm going to assume that initially they started with a good program, so they're
Yeah.
not doing crazy shit. What are some of the things that can get somebody from feeling great to broken?
I think the second probably missing piece, because like you had a great question, is like, what do we have to do 100 chest to bars within a session? That's absolutely necessary if you want to compete at a high level. Like you want to make it out of a sanctionals qualifier nowadays. Like that's hard as fuck. Like you better be able to do 100 chest to bars within a session, recover, and redo that workout 3 days later.
Mm-hmm.
But going from what I said up to that is probably this mistake of intensity. It's like, okay, hey, no, I can do, three weighted pull-ups with 33%. I can do 3 sets of 12 strict pull-ups. Boom. I'm just going to go start throwing butterfly pull-ups into a wad. So I think the thing that people forget is like there's still lots of steps of motor control and muscle endurance first. So it's like we need the battery. Doing EMOMs. Can you do a 10 rep chest to bar every minute on the minute for 10 minutes? Like that's 100 reps, but it's a non-complicated 100 reps. You're doing them, you're probably resting for 45 to 40 seconds because that's the rep speed. boom, do it again. That is way different than doing 10 rounds for time of 10 chest to bar pull-ups, 15 wall balls, and 20 double unders, right? We have mounting fatigue. We have other complicating factors. That might not be the way to do it, or even worse. So, putting it into open 18.5 as your training protocol. Ace, thrusters and pull-ups with ascending fatigue, though that's another way. It's like, yeah, we got 100 reps planned within that, but that's not a way that's going to construct and help you build up and get better and better. It needs to be in a planned progression from strict all the way to chaotic.
Why? Well, shoot, I'm not going to ask this question. I'm going to make a statement and then ask a different question. I think a lot of people do that because they think they can compete sooner, or they think that they can build reps faster, which, by the way, lots of people can build, butterfly volume faster if they do butterfly pull-ups. However, what it brings in is a much higher probability of pain. And then it also brings a lower ceiling of capability over the long run if you don't build that requisite volume and then build into intensity over time. So stemming off of that, if you're saying that the intensity is happening too soon, when do you know, or when do you start to put intensity into a training program?
Well, I just want to see recoverability from the volume first. So, and it's a stepwise progression. So let's take that same example that, someone does 5 reps every minute on the minute for 10 minutes, subjectively recover. 2 days later, we can do an upper body training session. I go, okay, that 50 reps is something they can do non-fatigued. Now maybe I can play with 25 reps fatigued within a workout. We do another cycle within that. Boom, they're up to 7 reps every minute on the minute for 10 minutes. I have 70 reps completed, recovery 2 days later. Now maybe my window is 35 to 40 in those complex fashions. And so it's not, I'm not sitting here, being the bearer of bad news saying, don't do this, don't do this, don't do that, right? Everything is blending and everything is growing within reason. So it's like, if you show me these capabilities of a higher volume without fatigue, I probably have this window underneath that I can play with and mix it within. And I think something a lot of our coaches do really well is sprinkling gymnastics within a MAP session. So our easier aerobic stuff. So, row 400 meters, four chest to bar butterfly pull-ups, 3 kipping handstand push-ups for 25 minutes. Mm-hmm. The way we coach that is what makes it appropriate and individualized, right? I know that the coaches are going to give you a row pace based on things we've done. They're going to give you set sizes based on things we've done, so you can accumulate those volume in a semi-aerobic state that's a little bit harder than my every minute on the minute. And we're kind of building up these different pieces to allow you to express intensity based on what you've shown us.
Oh man, that was so well said. I hope that people go back and rewatch that piece again. That was so well said. So if people are building volume, putting intensity into the right places, doing, let's just call it ascendingly difficult things, do you find that there are opportunities, that's the wrong word, potential places where people can get hurt more likely, even if they're doing those things? Like what might create injury in those scenarios?
Oh, 100%. Like, one thing I say is, like, if you're coming to me and you're saying, like, I want to win at a high level, I want to see if I can push my max physical potential. And that could be in your garage, dude. Like, I fucked myself up alone in my garage plenty of times. If you're trying to get to that max, like, you are taking a risk. Like, all of our bodies have a finite amount of recoverability, of stress tolerance, and those are all, individualized. So I definitely think that if you're getting out there and you're putting it out on a sanctionals floor, or even like a local competition where you're at the edge of your capability, that's definitely a risk. And, some of those things, like a bigger athlete, if I have a 245-pound male doing butterfly pull-ups, like, he's producing a lot more power, and there's just some physics behind that makes it worse. Anthropometrics, just the mobility, shape of your spine, right? I played college linebacker. Like, I was really built to, like, hit things and stay still. So I have a little bit less thoracic extension, probably from A, genetics, and B, self-selected activities. So I get a little bit less extension. I don't have a great shoulder flexion. I'm a little bit more at risk than someone who has a background that didn't put them in that position. So there's things as far as, like, our genetics, our, body makeup, size, that all are kind of in this sliding scale of risk.
Gotcha. And so within all of that, which is tough to say, but within
Mhm.
all of that, what are some things that people can do? The program's good. They are challenging themselves. They understand the risk. What are some things on or off the gym floor people can do to stay healthy while they're pushing the envelope?
I think you touched on some of the most important things. Like I would go initially, because it's my bias, is to go to the program and just tell you like, we're not going to do this stuff year round, and we're not going to do it at max volume year round. So, understanding like, hey, these are the times of year, like local competition, open, sanctionals, whatever. It's like picking a few times per year that we are going to peak volume and intensity, and then we're going to draw back, focus on those corrective exercises and less costly to the body exercises to help you revamp your base of support and come back better next time. Outside of that, it's like being an athlete, man, is a 24-hour cycle. So, it's been super cool for me to come to this company and talk to people with other perspectives. Because as a physical therapist, as an exercise science guy, like I'm going to look at your program, I'm going to look at biomechanics, but there's so much more of that. It's like, are you sleeping? Are you managing stress? How on point is your nutrition? Like all of those things go into your body's ability to like create new tissues, recover from stress, recover from those physical assaults that actually are training, right? Training is a stressor. So you need to give your body the tools and the building blocks to come back from that.
Gosh, well said again. I think it's funny, the typical conversation goes, oh, that NFL football player, screw that guy because he just plays football and plays video games. I'm like, those video games are like a big part of this guy recovering, right? If he tried to do other athletic stuff, they might not make it past the season, at that kind of intensity. I think that there's definitely parallels between CrossFit and something like NFL, because like you're saying, it's an assault on their body every time they do that intense of an activity. Now it might be a different assault. So kind of last question here. When you have an athlete that like you can kind of tell is teetering, right? Maybe has some extra stress in certain areas of life. Maybe sleep's not quite as good. What do you do to that program? Like what would you change in that program to make sure that they stay healthy and progressing forward?
Let's give you the guru answer. It depends. Well, no, it really does though. So it's like, for me, one is understanding your athletes is like, what do they either perceive or actually have as the most intense thing? So that goes back to like their essence, their biomechanics, etc. So like, I'll pick on myself as like a guinea, as I'm easy to fucking pick on. So, if things aren't going well, like, stressed about work because Jim's giving me crap, daughter's not letting me sleep, whatever's going on, and like all this stress bucket's pouring in, the first things I need to do is take out two things for me is what do I perceive as the most intense? So for me, like I am not going to sprint. I am not going to do heavy CP. So like repeated weightlifting within workouts. And I'm not going to do mechanically challenging positions for me. So I'm not a great full squatter. I'll stick to power snatching. Full snatch. I probably won't stick to a full snatch. I'll stick to more of a power snatch. I won't do as many chest to bars. I'll rely on like a toe to bar and strict pull-ups. So some of those things are mechanically challenging and physiologically challenging, I will draw back. So if I have an athlete who's got great overhead position, their deload might look like strict handstand push-ups and running. If they're mechanically good at it and they're like, yeah, no, I perceive that as, then this from your conversation with your athletes, what they perceive as challenging is different. So, I love to sit down and row a 5K, bought a C2 bike, like I'll hammer out 20 minutes. Like I don't perceive that as challenging or intense. So that can stay in during those times versus other athletes that may need to come out.
Oh, well said. That's all I've got this time for you, Will. I really appreciate it, guys. Thank you for joining us. We'll see you guys next time.
Awesome, man. Thank you.